Thankful you're here. What a, man, I'm supposed to follow that up. That was some music. Everybody get their praise on this morning?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that kind of follow after what you guys are like. Okay. Go to your Bibles with me this morning to, okay. I want to tell you a story real quick. I'm almost out of breath this morning. My story starts like this. I have something in my life which regularly, as I was a young boy and a teenager and a young adult, that I failed at regularly. Right? Anybody ever failed anything here? Like I just couldn't. I just kept making the same mistake over and over and over and over again. It just regularly took place, and I just couldn't. It felt like every time I was getting anywhere with it, every time I just made the same mistake over and over and over. And it really started to irritate me. But you just kind of live life. You kind of ignore your failures sometimes, right? That's what we like to do. We like to ignore failures and point other people's failures out, because that makes our failures so much smaller. So I just kept regularly just messing up in regards to this specific area in my life. So to give you a little history, my dad was a pastor and very busy, and he loved to talk. And we always talked, but we never talked about this thing. So we never really. I always kind of kept it to myself, and we never really got it out, and we never were able to talk to one another about it. He really never talked to me about that particular thing that I failed at over and over and over again. So I go to college, and I kind of don't talk about it because I'm in a college where everything has to appearances are important, and everything has to be right and act right and look right. If you're not a good Christian and that sort of thing. And I'm sure if you've ever been there in your past, but that's kind of where I was. And then I had a few other people, and then finally, I'm 26 years old, and God brings this person to my life. He's the previous pastor. And I never met someone before that just challenged me like he did. And what I mean by that is, whenever I screwed up in that area, he would let me know it. And not in a tactful way. Have you ever been like that? It wasn't like, oh, Marty, it's okay. It was like, Marty, stop being stupid. Okay. And you know what? All my life, I had been around people who were tactful. And all of a sudden, here was a relationship, which we had a good relationship, and he looked at me and said, Marty, you need to change this now. Now, I'm going to assume that I'm like you in this way. How many have ever done stupid things? Well, we've all done stupid things. We've all found in our life, we've gone through phases. Maybe with you it's something like addictions, and you have this addiction and you can't get out of it. And it seems you screw up, and every time you do, it's like, oh, why did I do that? Oh, why did I fall into that? Oh, why can't I get out? God, help me. And it just seems like over and over and over, that problem resurfaces. And it seems like you're never going to get out of it. Or maybe it's a fight you had, and you yelled at your spouse, and they yelled at you, and all of a sudden something was inside of you that was a long time ago. It just kind of came out, and you said it. You're like, why did I say that? And it was hurtful. And you saw it in their face as soon as you said it. It's like, oh, why did I say that? Maybe financially, you've bitten off more than you could chew. And you spent, you don't have the money, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we are a little bit in debt. I owe a lot plus interest, which means a lot more. Why did I put myself in that position? Why am I doing that? And why do I keep doing it instead of turning it around? Maybe you got your stupid failure was just like my stupid failures, like other stupid failures. It was like, oh, why in the world did I get in that relationship? And we all probably could tell stories, whether you're married or single, of times when those relationships happened, and you're like, why did I do that? Why did I say yes to him? Why did I say yes to her? Why did we do that? Oh, it's so dumb. Or maybe you knew that you shouldn't have opened up that magazine, or you shouldn't check out that computer screen. You knew that click was going to take you to a place you didn't want to go. But over and over and over sometimes, we do and say stupid things. And what we say to ourselves is, oh, I just keep failing. I just keep failing. Maybe with you it's gossip. And like you just can't stop yourself. You know that you shouldn't go to that person and talk about that thing, but you can't help it. And it just becomes bigger and bigger, and it's your thing. I have good news for you. If that is you, if you are part of the 100% of the people who do stupid things, I have some great news for you this morning. You ready for it? The good news is this. You will learn more from your failure. 100% more. So much more than you will ever learn from your successes. That in those failures, in those times when you say, oh, why did I do that? Why did I say yes? Why did I participate in that? Why did I go to that thing? In those times when you say that, in those times when you fall, in those times when you make a mistake, the thought process, typically your intuition says, because I made that mistake, I'm no good to anybody, much less God. But the good news to you, and to me this morning, is actually the opposite. It's actually those failures that you made make you the perfect person to share the experiences to those who come behind you. You see, there are people in your life, as there are people in my life, who are 1 year, 2 years, 5 years behind you. And 1 year from now, 2 years, 5 years from now, they will be going through the same things that you are going through. And in those times, you can say a couple things. You can say to yourself, you know what? I just can't teach them. I can't share with them. I can't speak into their life. And the reason I can't is because I failed miserably. Which I would say that's actually the opposite. The good news is, actually, you can speak into their lives because you failed. Because things aren't perfect in your life. You can say, hey, let's have coffee. I need to help. I want to share with you some stuff that I did that I think could help you. Hey, let's build this friendship, because in those times of friendship, in those times when you pour into them, it's not you going, let me tell you the 3 points why I could help make your life better. But really, you're saying, you know what, I screwed up. Here's how I screwed up. Now, can we make this better? Can we take a step? Can I help you in those ways? You see, we all have treasure chests full of good experiences and bad experiences, which other people can learn from, and which other people can learn from. Now, this is the last, and what I think is one of the most important messages in our series called Come Together. We're going through values of a family. And this is the 7th value of family. And it's the one, honestly, that I think we as a church struggle with the most. We've talked about shared identity. We've talked about trust. Trust has to be a value of a family. We've talked about truth and how being truthful to one another and living in the truth, whether it's good or bad, is so helpful and important to a family. We've talked about acceptance and hospitality and suffering. We talked about cleanliness last week. And this week we're going to talk about this. Teaching. Teaching. That it is so important that family members teach one another. Instantly, I know you're thinking, whoa, I'm not getting on no stage. Or you're thinking, I can't wait to take Marty's place. I can't wait. We're not talking about what I do right now. I have a job, you can't have it. We're not talking about any of that. What we're talking about is how actually Christianity amassed its popularity. Whenever Christianity take off and spread, this is a key value. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it mentoring, you can call it discipleship, you can call it whatever you want. We're going to call it teaching. But it's so important that as a people, not just me standing up here, but all of us grab on to this value. Here's the principle. This is kind of the cornerstone of what we're going to look at today, is this. That the value of a life is always measured by how much of it you give away. The value of a life is always measured. That when you go, when it's time, and we celebrate your life and you celebrate my life, that the value of that life is measured not by how much you've amassed, not by how many relationships you have, or how big of a house you have, or the clothes you have, or popularity, or this or that. The value of your life is measured by how much of your life you give away. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but when I was growing up, there was always like this manipulation tactic in church, and I was raised in a pretty conservative church, and there was always this great scene that pastors and people would share, like youth pastors would give, and the really hard sermons. And they typically went something like this: all right, now here's what's going to happen. At the end of your life, what you're going to do is you are going to watch a movie with Jesus. And Jesus is going to make it, it's going to be like a movie theater, although we don't go to movies, right? And that's what they would say. And but it's like a movie theater, and I'd be like, what's a movie theater? And you're going to watch your life on film. And I'll be like, well, that's not a good idea. Right? I mean, with Jesus, you kidding me? I mean, Jesus would be like, oh, the whole time, like, why did you think this? Why did you act this? Why did you do that? And right? Now, some of you who've never heard this before are going, oh, I hope this is not true. This is going to be miserable. But that's kind of what we learn, is that, we're going to look at, and then, now, that was kind of a negative thing, but the positive thing is sometimes when the preachers really get going, they say something like, but it's not only that, but then you're going to watch with Jesus and other people's lives. I'd be like, that's awesome, let's do that. Right? I'd love to see what other people are doing and what they're thinking about me, or what they're thinking. I knew they were guilty of something, that kind of thing. And so that's kind of how a lot of times Christianity is looked at the afterlife. But at the end of your life, Jesus tells this story. And at the end of your life, you won't be judged by what you've done, but by what you've given and what you've accepted. By what you've given, what you've accepted. And many of us, what we have to do as a church, if we want to be successful, if you want to be successful, if you want people to look at you and say, you know what, they have something to offer me. This has to happen in your life. You're like, well, wait a minute, people don't look at me as wise. The reason they don't look at you as wise is because you don't offer them your wisdom. We've already said, you have things to offer. You have experiences, you have perspective, you have insight that nobody else has because you've gone through those things in your life. And then you can share those things. And should. But here's what happens. We kind of stay back because, I'm not a pastor. Because you know what, I haven't been a Christian for very long. I don't think I can do that. I don't want to be judging. And the thing we're talking about is not judging. We're talking about shared experiences. The things that I've learned, most of them have not been through a three-point outline, but have been through experiences that I've learned through conversations that I forced myself to have. And I think that as a church, that this is one of the things that has hindered us. Because I think we are hesitant. If you don't have a title, and if you haven't been a Christian for very long, or maybe you've been a Christian for a long time, but you failed, and you think to yourself, you know what, I don't think I have anything to offer. I don't think I have anything to teach. And in actuality, the opposite is true. In actuality, we are not going to change any part of our culture. We're not going to connect and lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ unless all of us decide, I'm going to share my experiences with other people. I mean, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen just by me sharing a whole bunch of wisdom up here or not. But what's going to happen is, as we come together on a regular basis on Sundays, and are encouraged and learn, and as we come together in our small groups, or even just one-on-one conversations throughout the week, then we take steps of faith and go out and share with other people. Hey, I notice you're going through this. Let me just tell you what I went through. We're afraid of doing that. Why? And I want to share some news this morning that I find pretty exciting, but well, I'll share the news, and I'll tell you, I think we really do struggle with this. I think all of us have to come to a place where we teach other people. Now, as a church, I gotta be honest with you, I want to grow. I want people to be connected and led into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. I promise you, that's not for my ego. That's not because, I want the biggest church in the world. That's not. I want to grow. I want to see people come to Christ. Why? Because Christ changed my life. And it's not fair for me to live in comfort. It's not fair for me to live in, I'm just going to be my own happy person and kind of have my own little world and my own little friends. If people are honestly dying without God. Dying without a knowledge of Jesus Christ. So I'm sorry if at any point I have given you reason to believe that I want to stay small and just kind of. I believe in family. We've talked about family over and over and over and over again. And I believe our church has to be just a complete and wonderful family. But not by sacrificing what God has called us as a church to do. And so this is one of the reasons why we as a church have the ministry leadership team. And this is not just my decision. This is not just Marty saying, I'm going to do this. No. Other people are involved in this. Let me tell you what it is first. We, ministry leadership team and I, have decided that we are going to sell all our property, our building included. Put it on the market. Now, this doesn't happen in 6 months or three months, but it'll eventually happen. And we're going to move to a place, maybe a temporary place, to where we can continue to do this more effectively. Now, there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that you can go there, but for instance, like why don't we fix things up? A lot of that is financial, honestly. I mean, there's a lot of things to fix. We can talk about the chipmunk that shares the stage several times a year. We can talk about frozen pipes. We can talk about Easter Sunday and sewage coming out of the bathroom so nobody on Easter can use the restroom. Praise God. We can talk about a lot of things. We could talk about frozen pipe every year after every year after every year. Then we can talk about memories. Talk about how incredible memories are here. And I've spent a good part of my life, not just at this church, but living on this property. We can talk about all that. But I got news for you. God has called me not to be a building fixer, but to connect and lead people in a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And that is my desire. That is my focus, and that should be our focus as a church. We say it over and over and over again. And it is so exciting to see what God is going to do as we take. And let me tell you something. If when I said that out loud in front of everybody, we've shared that with some people, if when I said that you didn't get a pit in your stomach, then we got to do something bigger. Because God has called us regularly to take steps of faith. And the problem is, I feel like I have been really comfortable, and as a church, we have been really comfortable doing the same things over and over and over. And all of a sudden, I come to this teaching point. I had said it a long time ago. I said these core values, and I said, you know what's happening? And actually, Carrie helped me see this. She said, Marty, you do such a good job of meeting with people and talking to people. How do you replicate that? And I realized what was happening is, I'm not bragging, but I do a decent job of sharing with people. I'm a people person. I love people. And I realized we're not replicating that. In other words, people aren't coming back and saying, wow, this person called me up and said they want to have lunch and they poured into my life. I mean, people aren't saying and I know there's different gifts, but people, it's not really happening. And one of the reasons it's not happening is because we're afraid. We're afraid that we're not good enough, or smart enough, or haven't been a Christian long enough. But the truth is, no matter what is happening in your life, the failures make you, honestly, prepare you better to teach than the successes. So if you consider yourself a failure, praise God! That is so awesome. Let's do this together. Let's be failures together and teach other people what we've learned, what we've done, what we know. You see, we have to do this. We have to teach people about Jesus and how He's affected our lives, or we're going to stay the same. We can be nice. We can do good things for people. We can serve. I am all about that. You know that. You know that's a cornerstone of our church. But if we're not going to take steps of faith and step out and say, hey Dave, what's going on? How you doing, man? The warrior right there. Dave, you know, why don't we hang out? Let's just talk. And it's not like me saying, the reason I need to talk to you is because you have some issues in your life and I want to teach you. No, I'm going to learn more from him than he's going to learn from me. And we're going to talk about our stories. And I'm going to talk about, this is what God did in my life. But He has some lessons for me too. But that has to happen in the context outside of a building. So many times we go, oh, it has to be the church building. And we preach and preach and preach against that. But I don't think that's worked out in our minds. I think we get so comfortable. And honestly, we don't have answers. I know I just threw this out there. We don't have specific answers about where we're going. But we're looking it up, we're talking, we're praying, we're trust me. People, let me just kind of throw these names out there. I know this, we're going to get to the scripture in a second. It's going to be God. Good. It's going to be God too. But people like Sean Leary, Don Van Riper, Billy McGinnis, Angela Rogers, Derek Shea, people who are wise, godly people, who I look at, and they have gone over this, and gone over this, and gone over this. We've talked about all the ins and outs and all the things we could do. And this is just a step of faith. There is more than one answer. And you could come up to me and say, well, why don't we do this? We could do that. Isn't that awesome? Praise God. That is an option. And sometimes there's two options. And God says, we say, what? Help us, God. Because we don't know. Now, going back to the teaching part. Jesus comes to this time when He's teaching the people of Israel. He's telling a parable. He basically says there's this man who, and Jesus was a great storyteller, right? I mean, he's just amazing. He says there's this man who was going on a far trip. So he brought his servants together. He had some money. And he said, I want you to take these bags of gold, silver. So he took 5 bags of silver and he gave it to somebody. He gave it to his most trusted person. He said, here, I want you to take this, I want you to use it, I want you to add value to it. Then he took 2 bags of silver to a person he trusted a little bit less, but still gave it to him. And then he took 1 bag of silver and gave it to another person. So 3 bags of silver. I just did math right, my bad. 8 bags of silver. Give it to the people. So then, the first person decides they took their first bag, their 5 bags, and they invested it. They said, okay, I want to use it. And they invested it, and they made 5 more bags of silver. And the guy who had 2 bags of silver, he took his 2 bags of silver, and he invested it. And he made 2 more bags of silver. And then there was the guy with 1 bag of silver. He was really smart. He said, you know what? I'm really nervous that I'm going to lose this. And that's a big step of faith. I don't want to lose it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it and I'm going to bury it. I'm not going to use this thing that I have. Because what if? What if? Maybe in your own life you're thinking, oh, I always pull back on the what if and I bury my faith. I bury it. Because I can't answer that question, what if? And if I can't answer it, I have to have control over it. So all of a sudden so we look at verse 19. After a long time, their master returned from his trip. So this is after a long time. So they had time to spare. Right? This person was gone for a long time, the master was, so they had stuff to do. You might even say it was 70.3 years or whatever, the average age of our lives are. For a long time, the master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more. The master was so ticked off. They said it. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Let's celebrate what you've done with my stuff. The servant who had received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I've earned 2 more. The master said, Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. And the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here's your money back. And I know what he's thinking. He's thinking it because of what I'd be thinking. Oh God, you must be so proud of me. I just did exactly what everybody expected me to do. And I just gave exactly what everyone expected me to give. And I didn't stretch myself. And I didn't work hard. I just took what you gave me and kept it. You must be so proud, God. But the master replied, You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. Then he ordered, Take the money from the servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But for those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. In other words, Marty, God might say, I've given you some stuff. In other words, Brian. In other words, Sue. I've given you some things. And now I want you to take it, and I want you to use it and invest it, and I want you to make something of it. Why? Because it's my stuff. I don't want you to be happy with staying as is. I want you to take a step of faith. Because that's what that was. And here's the thing. I don't want us to miss this opportunity. I don't want you to miss this opportunity. You have insight. You have perspective. You have wisdom. You have experience that a previous generation did not have. People who 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, people who they are coming along beside you, and they need to learn from you. They need you to have coffee with them. They need you to spend time with them. They need to be mentored by you. And you can't hide your stuff just because you failed. You can't hide yourself just because you're nervous about losing it. You can't hide your stuff just because you don't know enough. You've got to pour your life into people. Why? Because the value of a life is always measured in what you give away. And not what you keep. And not just your kids, by the way. I think it's important to do that with your family, absolutely. But it's also important to do it with your family, the family of God. In fact, it's vital. The first thing I did after Lonnie left, Lonnie left, and he was like, "You're the pastor." We had a vote, and everybody, it was awesome. And all of a sudden, I realized, oh crap, Lonnie's not here anymore. What do I do? Well, you know what I did? The first thing I did is I called Derek Shea. Why? Because Derek was a pastor before? Nope, I don't think he was. Nope, he says no. Awesome. But because he was wise. Because he knew stuff that I didn't. Was it because he never failed? No. But so I went to him and I said, Derek, I want to ask you some questions about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Would you answer them? Sometimes I had like pads of paper. We just go through the list. And he'd answer them. And he still continues to. But here's the thing. Sometimes people are not as extroverted as I am. I've been accused of that before. But whether you are introverted or extroverted doesn't mean that you can't go to someone and say, hey, do you have some questions? Can we talk about life? Can I help you in any way? Our life group leaders are so good at this. Our life groups are like family. And they love on one another, and it's an amazing thing. I've had the opportunity to go to all the life groups recently. And it's just awesome to see what's going on, and to see them mentoring and loving and cultivating these groups of people. Are they perfect? No. But they're working and talking it out. Our teenagers do this. Check it out. Many of our teenagers serve in this church. They work in kids' town. They work in the nursery. They work in Gambogi Place. Why is that important? Check it. Because there are things and places that even they went through, and they can be a help to others. So if they are being a help to others, how much more of a help can you be? If you would take it out the fact that, oh, I don't know enough and I can't help anybody. No, you have plenty. Why? Because you failed. Praise God. It's awesome. When it's all said and done, what it's about is the lives you've shaped. Not the money you made, or the houses you built, or the clothes you put on, or the friends you have. And if you don't give it away, this is what we just learned. If you don't give it away, it will go away when you go away. And nobody will benefit from it. You have got, as a follower of Christ, as someone who desires to connect and lead people to a great relationship with Jesus Christ, to get out of your thing where I can't help anybody, and to call somebody up this week and to say, how can I help you? Can we just hang out for lunch? I notice you're going through a hard time. I notice you're going through a great time. Can we talk? I want to hear your story and then throw yours in. What is the thing you can do, no matter how good or bad your treasure chest is, full of experiences? What is the thing you do to share those treasure chests with other people? Because here's the thing. When you ignore people, don't think you're not teaching them. When you ignore people, when you walk by someone just to get to see me this morning, instead of saying hi or whatever, and those people are pouring into someone else, when you walk by someone and you ignore someone, guess what you're doing? You're teaching them that our culture here at this church is ignoring, is non-relational, is. And you say, well, and I've heard so many people say, well, we can't go to a big church. We can't become a big church because I don't want to go to a big church because people don't talk to one another. Well, that's not going to happen to us because we talk to one another, right?
Yeah.
We talk to one another, so we're not going to have that issue. We step out and we teach other people because of our experiences. I share with other people, and you share with other people. This is what I've gone through. This is who I've loved. This is how I failed Christ. This is how things have gone good and bad for me in my walk with Christ. And because I share, it doesn't matter how big we get. If all of us share, we're going to be just fine. In fact, we're going to build this into our culture that all of us are going to share. And it's not, where all of us are going to teach, all of us are going to disciple, because we're not just looking at discipleship and teaching as somebody who stands up here once a week, but we're looking at it as all the time. We're looking at it as in your house with your kids. We're looking at it as in your house when you invite somebody over this week. All the time. Pouring in. Pouring in. teaching, teaching, teaching. And when we do that, we will get bigger, but we'll also get smaller. See how that looks? You see, our small groups work because they act like family. The problem is, when we stop bringing in new family, we become cliques. We don't teach anybody. We act like we teach people. We become inward focused. We become inward focused. And as a church, this is so good. As a church, and as we grow, the thing that's going to be exciting is not what building we're in. Because I got to tell you, when you really look at it, this building ain't that exciting. Okay? What's exciting is the people. The people that come into this place. The people that have given their lives to love one another. The people who we spend time with, who we disciple, who we see in life group. That's exciting. All right, well, that's it. I love it when I finish a message like that. So.